our country sustainably. Hello, welcome back to Market Avenue. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, we're talking about tourism industry.
Okay.
If you want to look at the tourism industry just on the heels of the pandemic, how would you describe it?
Before I respond to your question, good evening to you, good evening to your viewers out there. You know, the pandemic has actually hit every sector, and it includes the tourism sector. Is not an exception, and this is in terms of I mean, tourist visits to the destination has gone down significantly, and the restrictions that we've witnessed with the airline industry completely grounded at a certain point in time. So even though it's picking up, but that was one of the sector that was hardly, completely hit with the crisis, the pandemic. I think it's something that I want to talk about at the end of this discussion.
Great.
Yeah, but I also want to acknowledge, I know what we want to discuss has something to do with the study that we have done. And this study was done with 4 of us, with Dr. Ernest Kafui Cheche leading the study. And he is based at the Ho Technical University. And one Professor Charles Blankson, he's based in North Texas. And then Dr. Raphael Odom and myself, we did this study on tourism destinations.
Wow. Great. So what motivated this study? What drove you into this research?
Well, we know the tourism sector is one of the important sectors of our economy, the Ghanaian economy. It's a sector that employ a lot of people. A lot of our youth are found in that sector. Not only that, it brings us a lot of foreign exchange, and we know the relevance of having foreign exchange in this country. And the tourism sector is also one of the areas where, if we want to, curb rural-urban migration, it's one of the sectors that you need to target.
Wow. And
in terms of the economic growth of this country, then you cannot leave the tourism sector out. So one of the motivation was to understand the value chain, not just looking at only the tourists coming, but what are other businesses that are within the tourism size that if they worked, if they are able to, work in a market-oriented manner, in a sustainable manner, how does it affect the value chain? I think this is one of the key motivations for this study.
So what were some of the highlights in the study that, if you want to share, as you want to share with us?
Yes, I think one of the things that we have discovered is that though some of the, we expected them to, have some kind of market orientation culture, the issue of being sustainable in the operations, that wasn't clearly what we were discovering. And because it's a value chain, once one sector is down, then it affects the other sectors, especially the public sector, where it's supposed to support these small businesses. If the public sector is not doing very well, the support that they are supposed to give to them, the level of, knowledge they need to have, the level of training that they need to have, if they are not there, then you don't expect them to perform to the level. And when I talk of market, it's more or less of customer service.
Okay.
The level of customer service that the various businesses are supposed to deliver. And also being environmental conscious in whatever they do. I mean, these are some of the challenges that we discovered in this kind of study.
So, Prof, if you look at the hotel industry, it employs a lot of people.
Sure.
At the same time, we hear the attrition rate is very high.
Yeah.
In this study, what are some of the challenges there that need to be?
Thank you very much. I think the problem has to do with the low wages that we usually will, give to our staff. And that could also be causing this. And this is what our study is pointing out to. And sometimes to unfair treatment by the employers is something that we also discover. So if we can look at this sector, and sometimes, being able to have a voice, and sometimes maybe the employment situation, I don't want to leave my job, and once whatever is given to me, the low wages, I continue to stick to it. I think this is some of the challenges that we have there that is also causing that. So, and as this study discovered, being market-oriented will ensure that you treat your employees well as well, because they are going to help you to achieve your goals. They are going to help you to satisfy your customers. So if employees are not well treated, then you don't expect them to give up their best. And tourists will go with this kind of experiences that you have. Remember, it's all the touch points that the tourists are. It gives the total experience of the destination. So if the attrition rate is as a result of poor wages, and sometimes the way people are being handled in terms of management, these are some of the challenges that we are encountering in the sector.
Was it what you're talking about in terms of the treatment and how we take over employees? Was it just related to perhaps maybe the rural areas, tourism destination areas in the rural areas, or it cut across?
Well, it cut across, but then I think the urban centers sometimes somehow better than when you go to the rural setting. Okay, so this cut across and not limited to only one particular sector.
Wow. So in your study, what are some of the things you came out with that should be done to mitigate or reduce some of these challenges?
I think one of the key things that we need to do is awareness creation. And when we talk of market orientation or sustainability, it's not limited to some few people. If you look at our bigger study, it was about stakeholder market orientation and sustainability issues. So it's not limited to a sector. So some kind of training will help, especially even destination managers. I want to widen the concept so that it's not only restricted to the hotel sector, but all firms that are in the value chain. If some level of training can be given or some kind of awareness are given in terms of, for instance, if I mention market orientation, how many people understand this construct that I'm talking about? And if we are talking of sustainability, what are the key issues in there that people must understand? So we believe that training will help so that people will be aware that if you do this, it affects A, it affects B, it affects C. I think if we are able to get it right through training, then we'll be able to move our industry forward.
Let me give a typical example. Paga Pond is one of the most visited destinations.
That is
so if I find myself in that space, and with this study, how do I fit in and to help me become market oriented and to change the narrative there? Okay,
it means that when you fit in, when you get in there, maybe you are going there as a
no, I want to look
business.
at it from if I'm operating at that space.
Yes, you are operating at that space.
Yeah.
Yes. So it means that that kind of awareness, so that you will notice that whatever that you do, it affects the entire destination as a whole, as a small business. Whether you are maybe a mobile money vendor within the destination, how do you treat people so that they will have certain experience? You can tell your story when they get back to their place.
Wow.
And there are stories of people being able to discover people missing items and return it to them. I mean, these are some of the little things that you can do. And as I said, you should know that whatever that you do, it affects others in the value chain. But whether our firms know that, when I go to a place, I'm not going, maybe Paga, what is known about Paga is about the crocodile that we all know. People want to visit and see it. But that's not the only thing that will make up the experience.
There could be some fantastic millet cocoa and porridge. Yeah.
That is it. Yeah. The meal that the food that is around, the accommodation that is there, that you pass the night, and so and so. They all come together. So that's why I'm saying that it requires some kind of education. And where does this education come from? If we don't organize some kind of, disseminate this knowledge down there, because it's in academic journals. And how many people will read the academic journals to understand the technicalities that are in there? So if we can break these things down further. So for instance, in one of our, I know you get the key recommendations that we've made in terms of the study.
Go ahead.
People should be paid very well.
Okay.
I mean, the low wages that are in there is not supported. And I know it's terrible down there in terms of what people receive as monthly wage.
Average.
You can't mention, you know.
Wow.
Something like economy where people can receive up to 300,000 300 Ghana a month. Wow. Not even 1,000, 300 Ghana. How will such a person be able to survive and make sure that you treat customer well? Remember, a hungry man is an angry man. So when people are well paid, I believe they will do the right thing. And we also, made one recommendation asking the Labor Commission not to wait for strikes before action is taken. You can monitor the environment and do the right thing if the right things have not been done. But you know, I know what I'm talking, people know about it. But people are surviving.
Last year we saw La Palm
issues
coming up.
And this is one of the destination sites that we are talking about. You know, it all contributes. People come, they stay there. If they want to visit tourist sites, you have to be in the hotels. So we shouldn't be expecting our tourists to come and only to be witnessing people striking here and there. I think it all adds up to their experiences. And 1 minute delay, you don't know what you are causing to somebody. A minute delay, not to talk of, it disrupts a lot of things. It disrupts a lot of things. So when we talk of services, we need to pay attention to the sector and do things at the right time. Monitor the environment, monitor the labor environment, monitor the business environment. I mean, when you get the triggers, then you make sure that you call it before it's out of hand.
I read a little bit of the report indicating that there's a need for SHRAG also to come in. How do they come in? Yes,
SHRAG is one of the last recommendations we made in our report. The challenge is that, it has legal implications, and, our people sometimes too are afraid of, going to court and other things. So that's why we are recommending SHRAG should look into that area so that when people are unhumanly treated, then SHRAG can take it up, especially those working in those sectors. I know it is not only in our local context, even global level. You see how people are treated in hotel rooms and so forth. Yes, because they are always vulnerable. So it's important we get SHRAG in there to make sure that human rights abuses are not meted to people, those working in the sector.
So this wonderful document, if I work in, let's say, where the monkey sanctuary is, how will I get access to this and get knowledge to operate in that sustainable you're talking about and become market oriented?
Yes, the document is available. We publish in good journals, and then if you Google or you go to Google Scholar with my name and some of the key technologies that we are talking about, we are stakeholder market orientation, stakeholder market and sustainable orientation. Just Google that and it will pop up. It will pop up because we do our works in good journals, as I said, and then you can read the total report.
Wow. So apart from me going to the internet, do you have plans, or perhaps you team up with other organizations to make sure that the education go down there?
I think that's another good point, question that you have asked. We have also, with the support of one of our PhD students, we have teased out a report of one of the recommendations. So if you check BFT, you also be able to pick some of, at least some little bit of insight into the report.
And overall, when these things, some of these recommendations are done, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, how do you foresee the tourism sector in Ghana, if all that you're talking about had been achieved, or not, maybe not all, but some?
Yeah. If we are able to take our report and read, and even if you don't want to read the technical aspects of it, because as academics, we do a lot of things. We do methodological stuff, a lot of technical issues, literature issues. If you don't want to read it, just go to our managerial implications and read. And I assure you, when you read it and put it into practice, your business story will change. These are real time. We talk to people on the ground, because what we talk, like theory and practice, go hand in hand.
Wow.
So what we put in the report is what you have told us as practitioners. So go and read the report and try to implement those things in your small corner. It doesn't matter whether it is a micro business, small business, or large business. Just read the managerial implications. The theoretical implications are also in there. If you don't want to read that, just read the managerial implications. Try to put it into practice in your setup, and you see the difference. I see if firms are able to do this, then we expect a total change, improvement in business performance, both qualitatively and quantitatively. They will see some improvement in their activities. Customer satisfaction will come on board about our tourism operations. I mean, return visits are likely to occur. And the kind of experiences people will carry about us, the word of mouth testimonies about Ghana as a destination center will go further. Already the macro environment is good for us in terms of stability, and that is helping Ghana compared to other countries within the sub-region. We've been stable for a while. So our tourism sector, the destination, should be doing well. They should capitalize on this stability and make sure that that is adding to some of these business strategies that we are talking about, being market-oriented and being sustainable in your operations. I mean, these are things that are within your control. But the macro environment, as I said, has been largely peaceful for us. So our destination should be doing very well.
So in terms of job creation, Prof?
Yes, it's a sector that I think it's a vast sector, and it is the large, we are told it is the third contributor to our GDP. So I expect the tourism sector to create a lot of opportunities now that the pandemic is gradually slowing down, and then at least there are vaccinations here and there. We're able to sit here. We've all gotten some jobs here and there, so
exactly, yes.
that has, at least we have some confidence in that. So for me, the future is bright, and it's one of the sectors that we can look at to create opportunities for our teaming unemployed youth. And as I said, it's a whole lot of businesses in there. It's a chain of businesses. It doesn't matter. And I mean, we being in business, scholars in business, we always say, one of the theories is that if we want to use a lot of investment to start business, especially at the individual level, you have to be very careful. You've got to be very careful. You don't go borrow so much to start. Capital, we know, is one of the key things that you need to do business. But start it on a small note. Don't go and overburden yourself. So destination side has a lot of small businesses, and it should not necessarily. So when we want to create employment for people, I think the tourism sector is one of the sectors that we can look at.
Wow. Looking at you just talked about the easing of restrictions.
Yes.
That might not be within the purview of the study, but from where you sit and the studies you've done, I mean, if you look at the West African sub-region, like you're talking about instability here and there, what should we do as a country to take advantage of the stability we have to garner, I mean, guess who more people to come into our part of the for tourism?
Yes, so that's a competitive advantage there. And it is something what, when you are positioning yourself, you don't have to ignore it. Yeah, you don't have to ignore it. It's one of the things that you should champion. I mean, they should look at us. And it behoves on all citizens to make sure that we hold this. It's something that we need to be proud of, you know. So in your sales proposition, in your proposition to the whether global community to the domestic, you remember the tourism has a domestic as well as the at the global level. So when you are making your propositions, it's one of the key things that you should feature in the statement, so that you champion it, because every destination will have something unique about the destination and you want to project it. So this is something we shouldn't ignore.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Prof, for your time in the studio. It's a pleasure talking to you.
It's a pleasure talking to you.
I think there's more to look at the tourism sector. So maybe we'll see how we can host your other colleagues that were part of this study.
That is it.
Especially
Dr.
Cheche, yes,
from Ho Technical University. He was the lead author for the study.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So that's how we draw the curtain on Market Haven this week. God willing, we're coming away again. Remember, Monday is Chocolate Day. Don't forget to buy a chocolate, because that is what we're talking about. Shalom. Bye.